The profound impact of music has always fascinated me. There's something almost supernatural about the way melodies and lyrics can transport us, heal us, and connect us to something deeper than ourselves. Today, I want to take you on a journey into a fascinating new frontier where faith, creativity, and technology converge to create something truly special. I've been reflecting lately on how our digital age presents unique opportunities for spreading messages of hope and faith. In a world increasingly dominated by fleeting content and shallow entertainment, we're called to be salt and light, to create meaningful content that uplifts, inspires, and points to eternal truths. What if I told you there's an emerging form of creative expression that combines musical artistry with visual storytelling in a way that's both accessible and potentially transformative? It began one quiet evening as I was scrolling through my YouTube recommendations. A video caught my attention, a beautifully animated figure singing a soul-stirring melody that spoke directly to my heart. The imagery was captivating, but it was the emotion conveyed that truly moved me. I found myself returning to it again and again, each time finding new layers of meaning in the combination of visuals and music. My curiosity piqued. I decided to investigate further. What I discovered astonished me. This wasn't just a random viral video. It was part of a growing movement of creative expression using AI-assisted tools to craft emotionally resonant content. One channel I stumbled upon had only been active for less than 2 months, yet had already touched millions of lives with their heartfelt musical creations. The simplicity was striking, beautiful visuals paired with soul-stirring music, creating a space for reflection and emotional connection. I believe that as Christians, we're called to be good stewards of every tool and talent at our disposal. Throughout history, believers have embraced new forms of creative expression, from illuminated manuscripts to church architecture, from hymn writing to modern worship music. Each generation finds new ways to express timeless truths. Today, we stand at the threshold of yet another creative frontier. What struck me most about these creations was their emotional authenticity. In a digital landscape often criticized for its artificiality, here was something that paradoxically used artificial intelligence to create genuine emotional connection. It reminded me of David's Psalms, raw, honest expressions of the human experience that point us toward divine truths. These digital creations, at their best, can function as modern-day psalms, giving voice to our deepest longings and highest hopes. So I began to wonder, what if we could harness these tools to create content that not only entertains but elevates? What if we could craft digital expressions that speak to the soul, that remind viewers of God's faithfulness, that offer comfort in times of distress and celebration in times of joy? What if technology could become not a distraction from spiritual matters, but a vehicle for spiritual reflection? The beauty of this approach is its accessibility. You don't need an expensive studio, professional musicians, or years of technical training. With a thoughtful approach and the right tools, anyone with a heart for ministry and a message to share can create content that touches lives. I'm reminded of how Jesus often used the simplest elements, water, bread, seeds, to convey the most profound spiritual truths. Sometimes the most powerful tools for ministry are the most accessible ones. Let me guide you through how this process works, step by step. We'll explore how to create content that resonates with hearts and points toward hope, all while honoring the creative process and maintaining integrity in our digital expression. The foundation of any meaningful creative work is its message. Before diving into technical aspects, we need to consider what we wish to communicate. Are we creating a meditation on God's faithfulness, A reflection on finding hope in darkness. A celebration of divine love. The clearest content begins with a clear intention. For our example today, let's imagine we want to create a piece that explores the theme of God's constant presence through life's changing seasons. This theme echoes the beautiful assurance in Deuteronomy 31:8. The Lord Himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. To begin crafting our message, we'll need to develop lyrics that capture this spiritual essence. We could write our own, or we might use artificial intelligence as a collaborative partner. If we choose the latter approach, we'd want to provide clear guidance to ensure the output aligns with our faith perspective and theological understanding. For instance, we might use a prompt that specifies our desire for lyrics exploring God's faithfulness through life's changing seasons, perhaps referencing scriptural themes like those found in Ecclesiastes 3 about seasons, or Lamentations 3:22-23 about God's mercies being new every morning. We'd want to ensure the tone is authentic, avoiding clichés, while remaining deeply rooted in biblical truth. After providing such guidance to an AI tool like ChatGPT, we'd receive draft lyrics that we could then refine and infuse with our own spiritual insights. The key here is to view technology as a partner in the creative process, not as a replacement for human discernment and spiritual reflection. We'd review the lyrics carefully, making sure they align with sound doctrine and express authentic faith. With our message clarified and lyrics refined, we move to the musical component. Music has a unique ability to bypass our intellectual defenses and speak directly to the heart. As Christians throughout centuries have understood, from Gregorian chants to gospel music, melody and harmony can create sacred space for encountering God. There are several online platforms that can help transform lyrics into melody. One such platform is Suno, which allows us to input lyrics and specify musical styles. For our song about God's faithful presence, we might select a contemplative folk style, or perhaps a gentle worship ballad approach. When using such a tool, we'd provide our lyrics along with guidance about the emotional tone we're seeking. For a song about divine faithfulness through changing seasons, we might specify a style that begins softly, builds with hopeful momentum, and concludes with peaceful assurance. We'd want the music to mirror the emotional journey of someone moving from uncertainty to confidence in God's unchanging nature. After submitting our parameters, the platform would generate several musical interpretations of our lyrics. Our role then becomes one of discernment, listening carefully to determine which version best captures the spiritual essence of our message. We might find one version that particularly resonates, where the melodic journey complements the lyrical one, creating space for reflection and spiritual connection. Once we've selected our preferred musical rendition, we can download it as an audio file. This becomes the foundation upon which we'll build our visual expression. The visual element of our creation is equally important, as it provides a focal point for contemplation. We're looking to create imagery that complements our message without distracting from it. Visuals that invite viewers into a space of reflection rather than mere entertainment. For our theme of God's faithful presence through changing seasons, we might envision imagery that subtly conveys this journey, perhaps a figure standing firm amid changing landscapes, from spring blossoms to summer abundance, autumn transition to winter stillness. The visual should evoke the emotional quality of our message. To create such imagery, we can use AI-assisted art generation platforms like Leonardo. These tools allow us to describe the imagery we envision, and they generate visual interpretations based on our descriptions. For instance, we might input a description like, "A thoughtful person standing against a background that transitions through the four seasons, with light illuminating their face, conveying peace amid change." When crafting our visual prompt, we want to be specific about the emotional quality we're seeking. Words like serene, contemplative, or hopeful help guide the generation process toward imagery that aligns with our spiritual message. We'd also specify technical aspects like portrait orientation if we're creating content for platforms that favor vertical formats. After submitting our description, the platform will generate several visual interpretations. Again, our role becomes one of discernment, selecting the image that best complements our message and creates space for spiritual reflection. We're looking for imagery that feels authentic rather than artificial, that conveys emotion without manipulation. Once we've selected our preferred image, we download it to use as the foundation for our visual component. This static image will soon be transformed into a dynamic expression of our message. Now comes the moment where our lyrical message, musical expression, and visual imagery converge. Using platforms like Hedra, Calm, or similar tools, we can create a synchronized experience where our selected image appears to perform our song, with lifelike movement and lip synchronization. This process involves uploading both our audio file and our selected image to the platform. The artificial intelligence then analyzes the audio and animates the image accordingly, creating the appearance that the figure in our image is performing the song we've created. What makes this particularly powerful for spiritual content is that it creates a personal, intimate feeling, as though someone is sharing this message of faith directly with the viewer. There's something profoundly moving about seeing expression and emotion paired with words of hope and faith. It creates a space for connection that transcends the digital divide. As the platform works its technical magic, we might reflect on how remarkable it is that these tools, the product of human ingenuity, which itself reflects God's creative nature, can be redirected toward sharing messages of faith. Technology, like all human creations, is morally neutral until directed toward specific purposes. By intentionally guiding these tools toward creating content that uplifts and encourages faith, we participate in redeeming digital spaces. After a brief processing time, our synchronized creation will be ready. We can preview it to ensure the movement feels natural and that the synchronization enhances, rather than distracts from our message. If we're satisfied with the result, we can download the completed video for sharing. To enhance accessibility and engagement, particularly for viewers who might watch without sound, adding captions can be valuable. Captions ensure our message reaches everyone, including those with hearing impairments or those watching in sound-sensitive environments. Most video editing platforms, from professional options like Adobe Premiere to more accessible alternatives like CapCut or Filmora, offer captioning features. Some even provide automatic speech-to-text capabilities that can generate captions directly from our audio. When adding captions, we want to ensure they're accurate and visually integrated with our content. The style should complement rather than compete with our visuals. Many platforms offer different caption styles. We'd select one that feels appropriate for our spiritual message, perhaps something clean and understated that doesn't distract from the emotional impact of our creation. After adding captions, we'd review our video once more to ensure everything works harmoniously. The music, the visuals, the animation, and the text all serving our central message about God's faithful presence through life's changing seasons. There's something beautiful about the fact that these creative tools are widely accessible, You don't need expensive equipment or specialized training to begin creating content that reflects your faith journey and speaks hope to others. With just a computer or even a smartphone, you can craft expressions that touch hearts. This accessibility reflects something deeply aligned with the Christian message that God uses ordinary people and humble means to share extraordinary truth. Throughout Scripture, we see God working through the unlikely, the overlooked, the seemingly inadequate. From Moses and his speech impediment to David's youth to the disciples' lack of formal education, God has always delighted in using the available rather than waiting for the optimal. If you feel drawn to exploring this form of creative expression, I encourage you to start simply. Begin with a message that has spoken to your own heart. Perhaps a scripture that sustained you through difficulty, or a truth about God's nature that you return to again and again. Let that be the foundation of your first creation. The technical aspects may feel intimidating at first, but like any new skill, they become more comfortable with practice. The platforms I've mentioned are designed to be user-friendly, with intuitive interfaces that guide you through each step. And remember, the goal isn't technical perfection, but authentic expression, creating space for others to encounter God's truth in a fresh way. As you explore this creative avenue, I encourage you to form community with others doing similar work. Share your creations with trusted friends who can provide feedback not just on technical aspects, but on how effectively your content communicates spiritual truth. Consider forming a small group dedicated to creating uplifting digital content where you can share resources, encouragement, and spiritual accountability. In thinking about sharing our creations with the world, we should approach distribution with the same intentionality that guided our creative process. The goal isn't viral fame for its own sake, but rather reaching hearts that might be receptive to our message of hope. When posting content online, clear descriptions help viewers understand the heart behind our creations. A thoughtful title and description might reference the scripture that inspired the piece or briefly explain the spiritual journey it portrays. This context helps viewers engage more deeply with the content rather than consuming it passively. While technical aspects like keywords and hashtags do matter for visibility, our primary focus remains on authentic connection. We want our content to reach those who need its message, which means being thoughtful about when and where we share it. Perhaps certain pieces are best shared during specific seasons, Advent, Lent, or times of widespread hardship, when particular messages of hope might resonate most strongly. As Christians creating in digital spaces, ethical considerations should guide our work. First and foremost is honesty. Being transparent about the nature of our content. There's nothing deceptive about using AI-assisted tools, but we should be open about our creative process if asked. We should also be thoughtful about the imagery we create, ensuring it reflects the dignity and diversity of those created in God's image. Our visual choices send powerful messages about who we believe belongs in God's family, so inclusion matters deeply. Copyright consideration is another ethical aspect of our creative work. When using AI tools to generate music or visuals, we want to ensure we're not unintentionally mimicking copyrighted works too closely. Most platforms have guidelines to help with this, and approaching our work with integrity means respecting the creative ownership of others. Finally, we want to remain focused on serving rather than self-promotion. While there's nothing wrong with building an audience for content that uplifts and encourages, our ultimate measure of success isn't views or subscribers, but lives touched and hearts encouraged in faith. As we conclude our exploration of this creative approach, I'm reminded of Jesus' parable of the talents in Matthew 25. Each servant was given resources according to their ability, and the master's pleasure came not from the amount they started with, but how faithfully they used what they were given. The digital tools available to us today represent modern talents entrusted to our stewardship. Some might use these tools for content that distracts, divides, or diminishes, but we have the opportunity to dedicate them to higher purposes, creating digital expressions that invite reflection, nurture faith, and point toward hope. What might happen if more believers embraced these creative avenues with intentionality and prayer? What if our digital landscapes included more content that creates space for spiritual reflection amid the noise? What if we could offer moments of unexpected grace to those scrolling through feeds of anxiety, inducing news and comparisons? I believe there's tremendous untapped potential here for digital ministry that meets people where they are, on their phones, tablets, and computers, with messages that speak to their deepest needs, not as replacement for community, scripture, or traditional spiritual practices, but as supplemental touchpoints that remind viewers they are seen, known, and loved by a God who remains faithful through every season. If you feel called to this form of creative expression, I encourage you to begin with prayer. Ask for guidance, for creativity that honors God, for discernment about what messages might serve others best. Then start simply, with one creation that speaks to something true about God's nature or promises. Remember that your first attempts might not be perfect, and that's perfectly fine. Creation is a process of growth, of learning through doing. Each piece you create will teach you something valuable for the next. What matters most is the heart behind your work, and your willingness to offer your digital talents in service to eternal truth. As you go forward, may your creations be filled with grace and truth. May they create spaces of digital sanctuary where hurried minds can pause and remember what matters most. And may they point always beyond themselves to the Creator who inspires all authentic creativity, the source of every good gift, the author of hope that does not disappoint. The canvas is before you. The tools are within reach. The message of hope awaits your unique expression. What will you create today?